I'm going to talk about this book again, The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. It's a book about highly improbable events that have a high impact. And since my memory is really bad, I gotta flip through it and refresh myself. So, let's see. Yes, the highly improbable consequential event. Or impact and consequential, same thing. So, I think this book really ties into hindsight bias, because what this guy says is that historians, and this guy is really into epistemology and applied epistemology, where his beginning, like the early years of his life, he lived in Lebanon, which was at that time in the middle of war. And when he was there, he experienced people that were telling him that the war would only last one more day. So they would always say, "Oh, it'll be over tomorrow," and they did that for 17 years. And on top of that, he's also survived. He later became what is called a specialist in derivatives in finance. So they're really smart people that use math to figure out what happens in the financial world. And what he said in 1987, when the financial crisis happened, what happened there reminded him a lot of what happened in Lebanon. Is that what it's called? I feel like I'm butchering that. Lebanon, not Lebanon. In Lebanon, except in the financial world, it was a little more eerie. So, he said humans are very good at looking at things in the past and making judgments and having it sound a lot smarter. So the more intelligent the person is, the more confident he would be in being able to say, "Oh, this is exactly why this situation panned out to the way it was." Now, it says we're blinded by this. We're blinded by something called, or he calls, the triplets of opacity. So the first one is the illusion of understanding. So there's another quote, I can't quite pull it out of my head, but that quote goes, I don't actually know the quote, but the illusion of understanding is very detrimental to our learning. The biggest block we can ever have in learning something is thinking that we already know it. For example, if I thought I knew how to drive or how to play tennis the best I can, then that's going to be a block for me to learn from someone else or to improve myself. We kind of put shades on or kind of deceive ourselves because we think that we understand. So, but in this case, he's talking about history. So, the illusion of understanding, or how everyone thinks he knows what is going on. The illusion of understanding, or how everyone thinks he knows what is going on in the world that is more complicated or random than they realize. Now the second is the retrospective distortion, or how we can assess matters only after the fact, and if they are as if they were in the rearview mirror. History seems clearer and more organized in history books than in empirical reality. Which reminds me, when he was reading in history books, everything is clearly defined. Like, this is what led to this, is what led to this. But he was actually reading a journal that gave him more insight than any of the history books ever, because what history books do is they filter out a lot of it so that they appear a lot smarter and more intellectual. But this guy who was writing in the journals, he was documenting it as it happened, and he was in France when World War II started. So what they were saying about Hitler was that he was like a short-term lived thing, and that'll just pass over. But as we all know, Hitler came to rise up in power and then became a threat to the world. And so they were thinking, like, that journal gave a clear thought. And even though it was a journal documenting, he did have a publicist, which could have taken out a lot of the other crucial information that would have given more insight. Journalists have not journalists, but publishers have a habit of taking out things that they don't think is necessary. They take out things to make it more engaging and more interesting for the readers, but sometimes those pieces of information are crucial or very important for us to gain more insight into, because it gives us more to read in between the lines. Now C, the overvaluation of factual information and the handicap of authoritative and learned people, particularly when they create categories, when they platonify. So this, he's talking about the overvaluation of facts and figures and things that are known. And even earlier in the book, he is saying that the things that make the most impact are the ones that are unknown. The highly improbable events that occur that have a huge consequence in our lives. So it just reminds me of the hindsight bias, what Charlie Munger says. What Charlie Munger says is, when you look back on things, you think that it's a lot clearer than they actually were when you were in it. Like, a lot of events that happened, hindsight bias could have easily been avoided, but no one ever thinks about it because they didn't have the awareness. So that's kind of what I got from the book. The 3 things that blind you. What's it called? The illusion of knowledge. He said it fancier, but distortion of historical events that led up to distortion of sequences that led up to an event. And then the last one was oh my goodness, my memory is so bad. I need to work on this. Oh shit, it's already 9 minutes. This is supposed to be quick. Okay, Nick, it is... I already forget the first one. Oh, illusion of knowledge. The change or in deception of the sequence that lead up to an event. Fuck. Damn it. I need to be better at this. The overvaluation of factual information. Okay, the retrospective distortion. Retrospective meaning, retrospective is the past, and distortion of it. So the retrospective distortion of the sequence of things that happened that led to the event that had the big impact. and once that happened, we have a hindsight bias and we distort the things that actually happened. And then the overvaluation of factual knowledge. And this book claims that a lot of the big things that happened are based on non-factual things, things that couldn't be predicted. So his big argument was the world is built on black swans, where a lot of things that shaped the world were things that were highly improbable but had a big impact or had a big consequence, like Bill Gates and Microsoft, or the wars. I think he actually says here, he says Harry Potter was one of them, or the internet was another one. So that is what the book's about. Hopefully I get better at this. Till next time.